A Bible forum given on the 28th of May 2026 to RMIT Christian Union FOCUS.
We've been going through the Gospel of Luke here at Focus, and the overarching theme is the Saviour comes to seek the lost. And today's topic's on time. I labelled it Jesus Lord over time. You've got to read the passage and say, well, the passage doesn't say anything about time, but it's weaved in there somewhere, so let's have a go if we see it there. And we look at Luke chapter 8. But to get us started, I thought we'll get some introductory questions to get your juices talking, your mouth juices, whatever it is, or whatever it is you call it, so that you get to know each other and you get to know each other on the table, and maybe have a go at these questions. When do you feel like time is flying by the fastest? Maybe during exam time. When does time feel painfully slow for you? Maybe during exam time. And what's one thing you wish you had more time for? So feel free to share as much as you like, and we'll get back in a few minutes. So go for it. I think you guys are having great conversations. Feel free to continue them in the break or after Focus. But I thought we'll go straight into the passage on Luke chapter 8. I'll ask Wayne to come up, and Wayne's going to read the passage. And if you have any questions, feel free to keep in mind, keep a note of it, especially if it's words you're not sure about. Thanks, Wayne.
Okay. Now, when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, who was a ruler of the synagogue. And falling at Jesus' feet, he implored him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she was dying. As Jesus went, the people pressed around him. And there was a woman who had why is there two heads? Is that a typo?
It's like in the past tense, we had.
Okay. Oh, and a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd surround you and are pressing on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling, falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had immediately been healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." While he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore." But Jesus, on hearing this, answered him, "Do not fear, only believe, and she will be well." And when he came to the house, he allowed no one to enter with him, except Peter and John and James, and the father and the mother of the child. And all were weeping and mourning for her. But he said, "Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, saying, "Child, rise." And the spirit returned, and she got up at once. And he directed that something should be given her to eat. And the parents were amazed, but he charged them to tell no one what had happened.
Thank you, Wayne. Did anyone have any initial questions about the passage, like words you weren't sure of, or even questions about the actual passage itself? And we'll see if we can cover it today.
I got a question about the passage.
Yeah, go for it.
So from 52 onwards, Jesus says, "Do not wait, for she is not dead but sleeping."
Yes.
And then in 55, it says, "Her spirit returned." Is that saying that even the body without the spirit can still be like sleeping and not dead?
Oh, how interesting. Let me get back to you. I'm going to think about that. Yeah, I'll get back to you. Yeah, I don't know if Jesus is making a point about the bodily state in terms of sleep in that sense. Yeah, I'll get back to you. Yeah. So how can you still be, in other words, how can you still be sleeping if your spirit has left you? Is your question. Yeah, that's, Yeah, interesting. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, let's look at some words to clarify together, just to be sure. What's a synagogue? That's pronounced synagogue, apparently. Not synagogue. Gogu? Yeah. What's a synagogue? The temple is... There was only one... Oh, yeah, that's close. There was one temple, but there were many synagogues. Yeah, go for it. A meeting place. So, back in the, let's say, Jesus' time, there was still a temple, but there were more than one synagogue. So a synagogue was a meeting place for Jews. They may have met on the Sabbath. They may have read the scripture together, and so forth. So that's what a synagogue is. Implore in verse 41. Jairus implored, I think. Yeah, what does implore mean? Say?
Meaning?
Yeah, what's the meaning of implore? That's right.
Statement.
A statement? Okay, yes. Say it again. Beg? Yeah, beg. So maybe, beg, like a really desperate saying. Yeah. So like, really desperate how I'd translate it. Yeah. Okay, people pressed around him in verse 42. That is, people pressed around Jesus, I imagine. What does pressing around someone mean?
Starting to boost them.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe you're in a crowd and people just press around you. So feel like you're in a disco or you're a dance club or something like that. You're just so many people and you're just pressed against each other. Or maybe the trains in the morning. You're like sardines inside a train. That feels like you're being pressed around, yeah. You can think about Jesus when that happens to you. Like, Jesus was pressed around. Discharge of blood, verse 43. What do you think discharge of blood means?
She's on her period.
Yeah, I think that's the right I think that's correct, yeah. Even though it doesn't say menstrual period, I think it probably is the discharge of blood from a continual discharge. Yeah. Okay. Fringe of his garments. What's a fringe?
Would it literally be like the one where it has like the little muscles in the little testes?
Oh, it's okay. I thought fringe was just the edge of the garment.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Okay,
but
the dangles would say it's a fringe? Okay. Maybe you're right.
Just the barest bit of the garment.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Just the slightest touch. You always say she brushed the it was like just touched. Yeah. So it's not a hold on like cling or hug or something. So I think it was just touching the fringe of his garment. And her spirit returned, which is Lionel's question. What do you think? What does her spirit return actually mean? What do you think that means? Yeah.
She came alive?
She came alive. Yeah, that's right. So we'll say you're alive now. You've got in one sense, it's a bit like saying your soul. Like right now, I know you're alive because you've got your soul in you now. You got a dead, cold body. You say that soul's left that body. So a bit like how we use the word soul today, I would say. Yeah. Okay. Let's keep going. I might get Wei Yen to come up and read verse 40 to 42. And as she gets up, think about these three questions. What do you notice about Jairus' action in these verses? Why do you think he fell at Jesus' feet? And how desperate would you be in Jairus' situation? Thanks, Wei Yen.
Now when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, who was a ruler of the synagogue. And falling at Jesus' feet, he implored him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she was dying.
Oh, and as Jesus...
Oh wait, sorry, I need more sleep. As Jesus went, the people pressed around him.
Alright, go have a go at those three questions. Go for it. Alright, hopefully that's been a great start to the passage, to have a look into it. I've labelled just this section Desperate Time. And your handout has the questions as well. You ever want to reflect and come back to it. So we find that in the opening verses, Jesus returns to find a crowd waiting for him. Just imagine he comes back and there's a huge crowd, and amidst the crowd there's a leader. So it's pretty important. He's a ruler, a leader of the synagogue, so he's probably an important person in society. And he falls at Jesus' feet. So he does this publicly in front of the whole crowd, and that could be quite humiliating, or humbling at least. It's a desperate plea. And that word implore is like that begging, like he's begging Jesus to come to his house. What would make you do what Jairus did? Like, it sounds, I'll be a bit embarrassed if I start begging to you, but this is a ruler of the synagogue, and he was begging. Does it sound like a desperate man? Yeah, a desperate man in desperate times. So, let's see why it's not moving. Oh, that's right. So instead of him in the crowd like I'm the ruler, he's actually pleading. He's imploring. He's at Jesus' feet. So the desperate plea is because we're told Jairus' only daughter was dying. Time is short. But only in here, when it says only daughter, I don't think he means. I don't think Luke is trying to say there are other sons and that the only daughter is dying. I think the only child he has, his daughter, is dying. Well, just to get an idea of what a child means. Before I got married and had kids, I thought having kids would be really easy. You just do it once apparently and the baby pops out. But I've since found out no, it's actually quite hard. And I looked up, a bit of Google because that's how you find out things these days. If you're less than 35 years old and you should go see a GP or doctor until you've tried for at least a year. So you're supposed to try for a whole year before you can consider looking for help. But if you're over 35 years old, you try for 6 months and then consider help. So we took less than 1 year, so that was considered fast actually for me and my wife when we had kids. So you can imagine it's a great miracle, it's a great blessing to have kids, and people want to have lots of kids, at least in the ancient times, because not many kids could survive. There was a higher birth mortality rate, like higher babies dying. That's what I'm trying to say. And when your only child reaches 12 years of age and she's dying, it's heartbreaking. At 12 years of age, that's when kind of like your mature life begins. You start having your period around that age, and you can start being fertile and potentially a mother. But this is the age where she's nearly dying. But she's not dead yet, is she? There's still hope. Jairus has found Jesus. Yeah, that's exciting. Yes, yeah, Jairus found Jesus. So there's that chance that, hey, my daughter will not die. That's great news. But verse 42, second half B, as Jesus went. So Jairus has got Jesus, and Jesus is like, all right, well, I've got Jesus now. And as Jesus went, the people pressed around him. So, yay! But all these crowds are crowding around. It's like, get out of the way, people. This is desperate time. I really need to get to my daughter. I really need this Jesus guy to get to my daughter. So I'm trying to get you to feel the desperation right now for Jairus. If you're in Jairus' shoes, you're like, really, please, I need this Jesus guy to my only daughter who's dying. That's what the feeling you're supposed to have. As Jesus went, the people pressed against Jesus. Okay, and then let's see how the rest of the story keeps unfolding. So I'll get Wayne to come up again. And as Wayne reads, think about these questions. What stands out to you about this woman's 12-year suffering? Why do you think she tried to touch Jesus secretly, not publicly? How does Jesus treat this woman differently than you may expect? So go for it, Wayne.
Okay. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by one. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd surround you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, and declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him. And now she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace."
All right, have a go at those 3 questions. Thanks. All right, let's bring it back. Hopefully that stimulated some discussion. Hopefully I'll answer these questions as we go on. I think the one that may get us wondering is, why does the bleeding woman touch Jesus secretly? So let's unpack that a bit more. This woman has been bleeding for 12 years. And it's from Leviticus 15. Maybe I'll get weigh in as you're there. You have to read out that Bible verse, Leviticus 15 first.
If a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, all the days of the discharge she shall continue in uncleanness. And whoever touches these things that she touched shall be unclean.
Okay, so if you've never heard the idea of clean and unclean, that's okay. It's just saying what is considered ceremonially acceptable for you to sacrifice animals at let's say the temple in this case, or tabernacle when the time of Leviticus was written. If you don't know what that means, just basically in that time the Jewish society was, you had to be in a certain clean state, that is, you not had any discharge of blood or touched a dead body before you can approach the temple and sacrifice an animal. The deeper question, you're wondering, why is it that they have this clean and unclean thing in the first place? That's a deeper question about what's the point of the book of Leviticus. It's to say that you've got to think about God in all aspects of life. That's probably my shortest summary I can say about what Leviticus is about. If you had a discharge, then you'll be considered unclean. And generally when you had a period, it would only be a short period of time. But the problem, a few days, whatever it is. But for this woman, it's been going for 12 years, which means she is perpetually and continually unclean. And in fact, anything that she touches will also be unclean. So if she touches other people who were clean, they technically should become unclean as well. You have to keep reading verse 31, Wayne.
Thus you shall keep the people of Israel separate from their uncleanliness.
Yeah, so this bleeding woman would be considered unclean. She should be isolated, so to say, from the rest of the society. Think about back in those COVID years, someone you knew was on your train and had COVID. What would you do? Like, dude, what are you doing? You got COVID, get out. So is that kind of idea, why would you risk coming into a crowded place knowing that you're unclean at the risk of making everyone else unclean? Yeah, okay. So she's considered unclean during this time, so she couldn't be touched. But the problem, she was continuously bleeding for 12 years. She couldn't go to the temple. She couldn't have children, because if you're bleeding continually, this 12-year-old daughter of Jairus was at the age where she can start becoming, at a mature age, to be a mother. She couldn't even be a mother because she kept bleeding the same amount of time. Anyone who touched her would also be unclean. So for her, time has been painfully slow and hopeless for her. It's almost like time is endless for her, that she is isolated and away from society. So she spent all her living, it doesn't say spent all her money, she spent all her living on doctors or physicians, but could not be healed. She all her living, like all her money, I had to think about how to illustrate that, but she gave up all her living, all her well-being, all her hope in producing a baby, all her time spent living away from the rest of society, and she's taken a huge risk coming to a crowd as one who's unclean. Does this sound like a desperate woman? Yeah, pretty desperate. So you've got two kind of characters here, a woman with no money, and then a man with lots of money. Arguably, they say the rural synagogue, they're probably quite wealthy. They both come to Jesus desperate. So again, this woman, for her, time is painfully slow and hopeless. For Jairus, time is desperate. See these two kind of clashes of time. It would feel like, for the bleeding woman, it would feel like an endless time. But don't forget Jairus' daughter. You're feeling like this desperation, Jesus bumps into a woman who's finding time is endless, but at the same time you got Jairus' daughter in desperate need for Jesus to get there to heal her. It's almost like you want to feel for the bleeding woman, at the same time you want to feel for the dying young girl. Can Jesus be there at both times at the same time? Is he there 24 hours? There's only 24 hours in a day, can Jesus show compassion everywhere he goes? So the idea comes in like how does Jesus handle time when there's so many people who need him? So you're kind of left with this kind of dissonance. Well, there's a desperate time and there's an endless time. Can Jesus be everywhere at the same time? So let's continue to keep going. So what I'm trying to say, at this time you're feeling for the bleeding woman, same time you're feeling for the dying child. That's what I want you to be feeling. Well, that's what I think Luke is trying to make us feel as we go through this episode. Alright, so let's go a bit more and see how the story unfolds. She touches Jesus' cloak in secret and is immediately healed. And she comes forward trembling, shaken, and her fear is that she'll get exposed. Just like that person who comes into a crowded train of like a sardine has COVID. She went in the whole group at the risk of making other people unclean, and she might be further reprimanded by Jesus because she may have made the one who's healing everyone unclean. Imagine that. Oh, you made Jesus unclean. And she'll be further even isolated. You'll forever be known as the woman who made Jesus unclean, and therefore he can't go around healing people everywhere. So that's a lot of fear coming out. But what does she do? She just comes out and says it. She declares in the presence of all the people she was unclean. She's coming out. I was unclean. In other words, I shouldn't be here. I was unclean, but now I'm healed. It's a great demonstration of faith. She's really been public about what Jesus has done. It's a great healing, and she's shown her shame being healed and the bleeding being healed. I think that's the reason why Jesus asked, who was it that touched me? So you imagine the scene, crowds. Imagine you're in the train or you're in a disco clubbing place, and then you're like trying to move through and you're like, who touched me? And you're like, dude, it's a club, or dude, it's a train. How am I supposed to know who touched you? That's why I think Peter's quite a funny character. There's a crowd around you. How could you possibly ask who touched you? I think Jesus actually given a chance for the woman to come out publicly to confess, actually, you saved me. You healed me. You made me clean. I think it's also similar to the reason why God in the Garden of Eden, I'll put Eden there, said to Adam and Eve, where are you? There's a chance for us to come out and publicly declare, actually, I'm here, God. Or, God, you made me clean. Yeah. So I think that's the reason why Jesus asked that question. It's not that Jesus... I think that's the reason why Jesus asked who touched me. Even though it may seem like a silly question, because you're in a crowd. Why would you ask who touched me? Let's see why I mentioned it. Okay, instead of unclean... And the funny thing is, instead of uncleanness going to Jesus, what you expect, it's reversed. Cleanness goes to the woman. He's like Jesus restoring all things. I don't actually mention the 12 years, but probably now I should mention it. Notice how the girl's 12 years old. You notice how the woman's been bleeding 12 years. 12 might be a significant number. Does anyone have a guess why 12 might be a significant number in the Bible? 12
year.
12 tribes? 12 years maybe, but...
For 1 year.
1 year? No, there was 12 years of bleeding, but there was 12 tribes of Israel. So, in the broader picture of Luke, Jesus is restoring true Israel. Is how it said 12 happened. Yeah. Alright. Let's see what I mentioned here. Okay, let's talk a bit about the power has gone out of me. Like, how does that work? You're probably wondering, why is this mentioned? Because it's almost like, I think that maybe the trap is you think, maybe Jesus is revealing the mechanics of how his miracles work. That power kind of leaves him and it goes on to someone else. It's not explaining the mechanics. It's not explaining the movement in molecules or atoms for the miracle to happen. I think it does. It's just showing that every healing is personal. That it's not like a maybe kind of thing, or like a maybe kind of like this ad I've got. Maybe if you give money, you could save a life. Give blood, you could save a life. Now I think what it's saying is Jesus is saving lives. He knows intentionally who he's healing. It's not like he's going to go crowd surfing and everyone who touches him gets healed. I think he's intentionally healing each individual. It's not that Jesus could save you, just like giving blood you could save a life. Jesus knows personally who he heals. Jesus asked the question of who touched him to give the bleeding woman a chance to come forward. Yeah, so I think the reason why Jesus says power's gone out for me is to show that Jesus personally heals. Yeah, okay, great. But time runs out. So Wayne, you have to read verse 49, and I'll keep going. Go for it, Wayne.
While he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore."
Thanks, Wayne. That's heartbreaking. Imagine you're Jairus. You've got Jesus. You've got to plow through the crowd. Oh, a bleeding woman, please. Okay. After all that commotion, whatever it is, Jesus declares, "Daughter, your faith has saved you, or has made you well." The message now comes to Jairus: your daughter is dead. So, great things are happening to the bleeding woman. Not great things happen to Jairus. How would Jairus feel that moment? Imagine the frustrated feeling of time. Like if Jesus, why did you keep speaking, Jesus? You could you spoke a bit faster. Maybe you could have got to my daughter. What if Jesus got there in time to save my daughter? Do not trouble the teacher anymore. What does that tell you how the messenger thinks? Or how the world thinks? Look, death has happened. There's no point. There's no coming back from death. Time gets us all in the end. Doesn't it? Time gets us all in the end. Like, you can't escape time. That's how the world thinks, isn't it? Even if you ask someone out there today, have you escaped time? No, we can't escape time. Time flies. Isn't that right? We say that? Man, time's flying by, hasn't it? It's already the end of the first semester. It's week 12 already. I'll show you a story. I was talking to a person who was from Germany, and there was a lot of conspiracies about Hitler, whether he actually died or whether he escaped after World War II. I think the running story here is he suicided, I think. But they also make a lot of conspiracies. Maybe he ran to South America and he's alive, and we're talking about it. I'm like, okay, that's quite interesting. And then he said at the end, but don't worry, he's dead now. I was like, oh, okay. Because he'll be like 120 years old by now, which is not possible. So I think the point is, even if you do get away with whatever crime like Hitler might get away with, time still gets you. You can't escape time. So the story's like, the German friend felt comfort knowing Hitler's dead. You know. So you cannot escape time. None of us can. So time runs out. And that happened to Jairus. That sounds really gloomy. So that sounds like a good time to ask other questions. Open Q&A. And we'll have a bit of a break. But is there any... If it's your first time here, we just have an opportunity to ask questions about what you've been reading the Bible or what you've been thinking about Christianity. So it doesn't have to relate to the passage we just read. Are there any questions you want to ask about Christianity that's been on your mind? And I will have an attempt at answering it at the end of the night. Go for it, Wayne.
Why does Psalms 136, what is the intent of Psalms 136? Because it's always like, blah, 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 his love endures forever. And then it just repeats 26 times. So what's the use of it?
That really doesn't work for you.
I know, but you don't need to say it 26 times.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Thank you, Wayne. I love your Psalm questions anyway. Any other questions? Oh, you go, Daryl.
If God desires all people to be saved and God's will cannot fail, why are some people lost?
Yeah. Do you have a Bible reference? To be true? Let's go with that one. Okay, yeah, will and desire. Sure, yeah, will and desire. Yeah, okay. Alright, thanks, Sarah. Any other questions? Great, okay, good, okay. Enjoy your break, we'll come back in around 7-8 minutes, go for it. And as we look at verse 50, just think about this, why is this verse so powerful in the middle of bad news? And what does Jesus mean by do not fear, only believe? So I'll read out verse 50. Verse 50, but Jesus on hearing this answered him, do not fear, only believe, and she will be well. Alright, have a go at these two questions. Yeah, go for it, verse 50. Alright, let's bring it back. Thanks for having a chat on that one verse on why it's so powerful in the middle. Let's see how we go. What does Jairus fear? Probably death of his daughter. What does Jesus want Jairus to believe? Probably life through Jesus. In the face of time that leads to death, Jesus tells Jairus to not fear, just believe she will be well. I've got pictures of here, like you can look. It's a bit like our life. We're born. The cradle is like the cot when you're born in, and we're all driving really on the fast lane to the grave. Like time's against us, and Jesus saying trust Him in the face of time. You can't really reverse time and go back to the cradle. We're only going forward towards the grave. So Jesus saying in the face of time, trust Him. Alright, what does that mean? What does it mean to keep trusting in Jesus in the face of time? I thought I'd use the illustration here. Some people may not agree with this illustration, but let's just go for it. I'm using it. In 1873, there's a guy named, Horatio. He had 4 young daughters who died on a ship that sank in just 12 minutes, so they died very quickly, while crossing the Atlantic Ocean. The wife survived and sent a telegram saying, saved alone. And months later, Horatio also passed the exact same spot that his daughters drowned, and he wrote these words, when peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. So if you ever sang that song or heard of it, it's quite a famous hymn, It Is Well With My Soul. It's written in the context of a man whose 4 daughters died. It's a bit controversial because he may not have been a Christian in the end, but either way, it's a nice song, nice hymn. And the point is, he turned to God, at least at that moment, when he was in distress, knowing that his 4 daughters had died. Yeah. That's what Jesus is trying to say to Jairus. That crushing news, your daughter is dead, don't bother to teach her anymore. The great thing Jesus says is, don't be afraid, just believe. Your daughter will be well. Your daughter will be well. It is well with my soul, according to Horatio. So Jesus tells Jairus not to fear, just believe. Only God can make the promise that someone who is dead will be well. And only God can make your soul well, even when you're facing death. Even when time is against you. That's what's happening in that verse. That's great reassurance that Jesus gives. We're going to keep going a bit more, so I'll get Wayne to come up and read verse 51 to 56. And as Wayne reads, think about, is Jesus confusing sleep with death? How does this show Jesus' power over time? Is he too late? Is Jesus speaking to a dead person in this story? Go for it, Wayne.
Okay. And when he came to the house, he allowed no one to enter with him, except Peter and John and James, and the father and the mother of the child. And all were weeping and mourning for her. But Jesus said, do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, Child, arise. And her spirit returned. And she got up at once, and he directed that something should be given to her to eat. And her parents were amazed, but he charged them to tell no one what had happened.
Thanks, Wayne. Have a go at those 3 questions. Thanks. All right, let's see how we go. I'll keep ploughing through. We might actually finish a bit early today, so let's see how we go. So, the Lord over time, it's Jesus. There's weeping and mourning that's happening. Jairus now referred to as the father, whereas previously he was known as Jairus. So I think we're supposed to relate with that there's mourning with the father and the mother who's lost a child. One of the hardest funerals to go to are usually a children's funeral. Much more quieter, somber. People aren't as giggly at a children's funeral. It makes it relatable to all fathers and mothers. That's why I think it's now referred to Jairus as the father there, when you know the father is Jairus. And all were weeping and mourning. It is sad when you see a 12-year-old die. Jesus says his words, she's not dead, but sleeping. And I think that does sound a bit strange because this Jesus got it wrong. Like, he doesn't know the difference between someone who's alive and sleeping and someone who's dead. And I think what's happening is he's trying to highlight the temporality of death. For Jesus, death is not final. I think we like to measure time as short because we see death as the final kind of endpoint. Well, how are you comparing time is short? What are you comparing it with? If you compare eternity, then 100 years is not much at all. It's like sleeping temporarily. Jesus flips what we think is final, permanent sleep, and makes it temporary. So if you said to someone, "I'm sleeping forever," yeah, that sounds like death. But he's flipping it, saying death is only temporary. Because what happens when you sleep? Normally you wake up again. Yeah. So the new permanent is not sleep, but it's life. This is why Jesus can say, "Do not weep." I don't think Jesus is encouraging white lies. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm a bit uncomfortable with that one, where Jesus is saying, "Oh, it's just sleep. Don't worry, it's not death." I think rather Jesus is flipping the idea of what death is. It's temporary rather than permanent. Because right now, our world and that all morning, they're seeing death as a finality. As Jesus is saying, it's not. It's going to be well for your daughter. That's pretty amazing. So, Jesus has authority over death. Death needs to obey him. So yeah, Jesus did speak to someone who was dead, and death had to go away. Let's say that. So, I think to answer the question before, was Jesus speaking to someone dead? I would say so, yes. Jesus was speaking to someone who's dead, and the spirit coming back means she was alive. She was truly dead. Yeah, or the soul coming back, you could say. Jesus takes the child by the hand, so it's just showing his compassion of Jesus. Jesus had time to stop for the bleeding woman. You think amidst the desperate time, Jesus stopped to show compassion. The idea of Jesus taking the child by the hand, the touching is showing compassion, personal, touched by Jesus. And Jesus speaks to the child directly, even when she is dead. And death obeyed Jesus when he said, "Child, arise. Child, arise." And the mention of her spirit return means she was truly dead. And you can see from here, we're always in that kind of death, the one unidirectional way of living. We're all living when time finally catches up to say we're going to die. Now, I'm not saying that Jesus Lord over time means he manipulates time. I'm saying he's fully man and lives in a flow of creation. So Jesus is still God, 100% God. We talked about that before. Also 100% man. Jesus is Lord over what time produces in a fallen world. So Jesus' authority really is over death. He is Lord over time, but the time that leads to death is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not saying Jesus manipulates time that leads to death in our fallen world. So that's why you can see Jesus showing compassion amidst the kind of desperate time. Because we frame our life by death, really. We think death is the end, that's why time is short. You can't think about it that way. If you think life is eternity, you won't be saying stuff like time is short. You've got eternity. So that's why we might hear things such as time flies. We say it so casually too. Oh, time flies. Yeah, time flies. It's because we think life is short. It takes a moment for you to think, well, why is life short actually? Why do we say time flies without recognizing actually life is short? It is short in terms of eternity. Death is kept at arm's length. We try not to think about it. We just say time flies up, realizing time flies because, well, we all meet death eventually. The reality of death gets pushed back. That's one way of coping with the idea of death and where time's bringing us. But the reality of time will be revealed. You can't escape time. Everyone in this room will die one day. Unless Jesus comes back. But yeah, anyway, that's a bit different story. Let's say, for now, we're all going to die one day in time. Your daughter is dead. Don't bother to teach it anymore. That's the world speaking, that the finality of life happens, and we quietly fear when time flies. Don't be afraid, only believe. Jesus is the one who death obeys. That's great. So Jesus is Lord over where time takes us to. Time brings us closer to death, such as Jairus' daughter. Jesus is Lord over it. Jesus has time for Jairus' daughter and the bleeding woman. To whom will you spend your time drawing closer to during this time? Jesus or death? Yeah, so we measure time because we think death is the final point. Jesus flips it and says, no, death is just temporary. True death is when you actually when you're spirit. I think true death in the Bible is spiritual death, when you reject God as your maker, reject God as your king, reject God who made you and purposed you. Okay, so I guess that challenge is draw closer to Jesus or to death. Time would. If you're on the fence, time will make your decision for you. So if you haven't followed Jesus yet, death is looming, and your time is running out. Okay, so let's do, just to end on that way, talk about Q&A. I hope my battery doesn't run out. I'll charge it soon. I think one of the questions was, I flipped the question order, but 2 Peter 3, the Lord is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient towards you, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should reach repentance. And some people will argue, or people like to, there are a lot of debates out there. They'll say what they mean in all is like all types of nations, like all people from different backgrounds. It's not saying every single individual. Others will say, no, that's actually all. God does desire all individuals to be saved. And how does that work then? And I would say there's a distinction between the will and the desire. God's desire doesn't necessarily mean how God willed it. Without breaking down God as if he doesn't have a set will, I think an easy way to understand the idea of will versus desire is to understand God's character. I think God is a just God, and the reason why he does, so to say, send people to perish is because he's a just God. If the crime's been done, the punishment has to be paid. At the same time, God's a merciful God. What does it say? Wishing that people do not perish, and he does do something about it and comes down and saves people. So I make a distinction between will versus desire. People might call it contemplative will and actioned will, or along those lines. I'm not trying to say God's in some bipolar state. I think it's reflecting God's character. He does have a desire for people to not perish. That's why all of heaven rejoices when one sinner turns around and repents. But he's willed it so that actually he's still also just God. So that we can say God is a just God. It's the God that's there. Yeah. Anyway, that's there's a lot about God. There's a lot to God. God is bigger than all of us, but that's how I think God's revealed us in the Word. Let's keep going. So Psalm 136. A really important word is steadfast love. That's repeated every single verse. That's why it's 26 times. Chesed is probably one of the really important words in the Old Testament. It means steadfast love, covenant love, faithfulness of God. A lot of ways of translating it. And I think it's repeated because the psalmist really wants you to know it. Remember the faithfulness of God. Remember the faithfulness of God. It's a great memory tool if you say it every second line. Remember the faithfulness of God. Or remember the steadfast love that endures forever. It's trying to say God is faithful forever. It's why it's repeated, so you can remember God's love forever. Now, why is it in the Psalm? Think about how the book of Psalms is broken into 5 books. This is in book 5, and it's the idea of the Israel's return from exile. And while they return from exile, they're rejoicing that God's kept his promises. So you know what exile meant? There was a promise made to Israel. Israel broke it, so God sends them into exile, so deports them into a foreign nation, the Syrians, or mainly the Syrians, and then the Babylonians take over. And then after that, God gathers them back from Babylonian, or Persians, and it's saying that God's steadfast love endures forever. God has kept his promise even while Israel was in exile. And if you look back at 1 Peter, actually, we're described as people in a modern kind of exile. We're in a diaspora, so to say. We're kind of mimicking that kind of storyline where even now Christians, we're kind of exiled, not where our home is in heaven, but we're living in a world that's not yet reigned by Jesus everywhere. The reign started, Jesus is king, it's just that we're living now as exiles in this world, waiting to return. And while we're waiting for Jesus to return, we know that he will return because God's steadfast love endures forever. Okay, alright. Last 2 questions to think about in your groups. Is time pulling you towards fear and death or towards life in Jesus? And where in your life would you like to hear Jesus say, do not fear, only believe? Because time's short, and where would you like to hear that phrase? And I've got some prayer ideas. If you ever, some ideas is thank you, please, and sorry. There's always some nice ways to think about when you're praying. I just wrote, thank you, Jesus, is Lord over time. Please help us to use our time for His glory, your glory, Lord. Sorry we take our time for granted, that we might actually forget time is short, actually. Are we using it to glorify God or not? So, any final questions, actually, because we've got time. Oh, good for you. Let's see. That wasn't intended at all. Yeah, has anyone got any questions? I'm going to pray, and then, if you got questions later, talk to me or Haley. Father, thank you so much that you have defeated death. Thank you, Lord, that you have given us time to repent and turn to you, that in your mercy you want us to turn to you, and you've demonstrated this mercy in Jesus coming early to save us. Thank you for sending our great King, our judge, who's meant to judge us, not to judge us to condemnation forever, but to save us. Lord, help us to cling on to Jesus forever and ever. Amen.